Anyone who's played FM for more than a couple of hours will know that this is a computer game, and as a computer game, it is going to give you a series of tests as you go through the season. If you are a good team, the tests are going to be fewer than if you are not so good a team. And these tests come in many forms, but one of the most common problems that people have, and one of the most common things I read about in forums, is my strikers can't score. And this will happen on a number of occasions to you throughout the season, depending on how good or bad a team you are. And so today we're going to just look at the 7 different ways that I look at this problem, and I have been very successful using these 7 methods. And we're also going to look at a game that I played in last night's live stream, in which I solved the problem in a completely different way. In a way that didn't make sense to the people watching, but made absolute sense to me. Some of you may already know this, but I'm guessing many of you have never tried it. Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome back to FM with Old Man Phil, and if you are a brand new visitor, I'm Phil and welcome to the channel. And if you have been playing FM for a little while, you will know that what FM does throughout the course of a season is it sets you challenges of different kinds which you have to solve. And if you don't attempt to solve those challenges, then you are not going to win that game. And the number of these challenges that you have will depend upon how good your team is. Manchester City, for example, will not get many challenges throughout the course of a season because they have the best defence, the best creative players and the best striker in the game. Whereas Luton, who are not quite as good as Manchester City, will probably have a lot more different challenges to face as you go through the course of a season, game by game. And the most common of these challenges that you will face during the course of a season is, of course, my strikers can't score. And at times it will look like they couldn't hit a barn door if it fell on them. It is your job as a manager during those times to grind out results so that you maintain morale, maintain your form. And often a draw is as good as a win in situations like this. It's your job to make sure that you don't lose these games. And so today I'm going to look at the 7 different ways that I will apply when I'm in such situations. And they happen to me quite a lot because the teams I manage are not the greatest teams in the world. And I will face these problems very often during the course of a season. And as well as these 7 different ways, we're going to look at a game that I played last night during the live stream and look at a completely different way, which actually confused the people watching as I was playing. And they wondered why I had done such a thing. But it was so effective that we ran out comfortable winners in the end. And this is something that I will use quite often. And there are specific reasons why I will use this. Some of you may already know about this, but I'm definitely guessing there are lots of you out there who would never consider doing this in order to score more goals. But there is also a question to be answered of how do you know that things are not tactically going very well? Well, the simple answer to that, as we'll see when we're playing the game, is to keep an eye on the shots to shots on target ratio. If you have had 7 shots and 0 are on target, or 8 shots and 1 is on target, the game is telling you something you are doing is not right. You need to make changes. If you simply ignore that, you will go on missing your opportunities, and you will in the end either get a very lame draw if you're lucky, or in the worst case scenario, you'll get FM'd. You have to act. When you see that shots to shots on target ratio is low, you need to make sure that you start getting your shots on target. By changing the way you are playing the game throughout the game, you will eventually notice that the gap between the 2 stats is getting smaller. Then you know you are back on track. So let's start with the 7 traditional ways that I will attack this problem. So, when I notice that my shots are flying over the crossbar, we've hit the post 3 times, sometimes it's even gone into rosette, I'm now starting to think I need to do something. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push another body further up the pitch. I'm not going to push 2 or 3 because remember, this is a game of risk. How much risk am I going to take in order to score the goals that I need? And so I'm really only going to push one player into an attacking role. And that's really just to disrupt the defense. It only takes one player in or around the penalty area to cause a distraction, and that can create space for someone else or for that player themselves. So there are a number of things that I can do. I can push my left wing back up further up the pitch, or my go-to is to change my segunda volante into an attack mode. And what this means is that he's now going to push up into these areas and often into the penalty area. He's creating now a huge distraction for the defense, and that could open up the space that I need. But I also have to remember that by pushing this player further up the field, I'm now leaving a big hole behind him, which the opposition could exploit. FM is a game of risk. And so if that fails, the next thing I can think about is changing my mentality. Now, I will normally start a game in balanced mode. I like to take a look at how the game is playing out before I make any changes, before I decide whether changes are necessary. And so I could now make a decision to go more positive. But also remember that when you go more positive, what you're saying to your team is, I want you to take more risks as a team. And so that instruction in itself will affect how every one of the players is playing and will cause them to get further up the pitch. So there is always going to be an element of risk when you change the mentality. And if I do change the mentality up one notch, and I will always do it step by step, it won't pay to go from defensive to very attacking, because what you're doing then is totally getting your team out of shape. They're going to be all over the place, leaving all sorts of spaces in behind them. So do it step by step. And when I go up one step, I'm going to change one player's role to a more attacking role. And so for each step that I go up, I'm going to need to ask one player to make a more attacking contribution. So if I go to attack mode, I'm going to actually have to add another player onto an attack mode. And then if that fails, but I am very comfortable with the way my defense is coping at the back, and we are dominating the game, but we just still can't hit a barn door, I am going to push my defensive line up a bit, and I'll push my defensive line up one notch, and that's so that we are now starting to play the game much more in their half. We're starting to put a lot of pressure on them now inside their half. We don't want to play the game in our half, and so all the game hopefully is going to be concentrated in this area. And if you're still not getting any joy at that point, then it's probably that they are defending very deep. And you'll know that they're defending deep by just watching the gameplay on the screen. And you'll see that their defensive line is starting somewhere near the edge of their box or even on their penalty spot. And that's an indication that they are just getting banks of players in front of you, which leaves you with very little space. Anybody who's played the game will tell you at this point, if you are faced with banks of players preventing you from creating opportunities, what you need to do is to stretch the pitch. So you can stretch the pitch wide so that you're pulling defenders out from their compact shape. So you're going to be pulling defenders wide to create spaces in the middle of the pitch. Slow the game down and play a controlled possession game, and then pull your lines back so that you're possibly playing in a mid-block or a low block. This will now allow them the space here to play out from the back. Now, once they start coming forward to these areas where you are engaging them, that means they are leaving space behind them, and that is an opportunity for you to get players in behind them now and score goals that way. And if it's still not working at that point, then it's possible that the roles that you are playing the players in just do not suit the game that they are playing in. And one of the things that you can do is to change the player roles. Now, I do not suggest going around and changing all the roles of all the players, because you're asking them to play now in a way that they don't understand. And you'll see this green familiarity bar go down with every role change that you make. And often the solution to it is just to make one change. And for example, I might have noticed that the main culprit flashing balls over the bar is my striker. And so I might decide perhaps it's best that he's not around the penalty box. So I might decide, let's put him as a deep lying forward on support. That gets him out of the box, because now he's going to come deeper to collect the ball, and he's going to try and feed runners that are going past him. At this point, I might also decide, well, let's change his role to a shadow striker. So now we've got shadow strikers on both sides running past him, and that might be the way to open up the defense. But I definitely would not recommend changing too many of the roles, because you will then be asking the players to play in a completely different way. And the more roles that you change, the more panic you get into, you are going to lose the vision that you had in terms of scoring goals in the first place. Again, slowly, slowly, gently, gently. And method number 6, if all this has failed, then it's possible that just the players that you have up front are out of form. One or more of them may be a problem. And so substitutions might be the answer at that point. And sometimes it's all it takes is to make a simple substitution. And then the final thing I will use, if I am chasing a game and there's only 5 or 10 minutes left, then I need to go more attacking. And remember, when I go more attacking, then I'm going to have to change some of the roles to more attacking in order to make the attacking system work. And to accompany that, what I will do is I will play a much more direct passing game at a higher tempo. I will get my goalkeeper to take long kicks. And at that point, I will probably ask my players to shoot on sight. This is when I'm desperately chasing a goal. And don't forget, it also works in real life. You can bring up one of your central defenders to play in an attack role, and sometimes, as well as in real life, that will often work in FM as well, and I have used that successfully in the game. And if all that fails, then you've got to put it down to luck. You have done everything that you possibly can to change the way the game is going, and at some point in the season you are going to lose a game when you've done all that, just out of luck, and sometimes that's part of football as well. So what I'm going to do now is introduce the 8th way, the bonus way that you can actually swing a game. And to do this, we're going to use a game, as I said, that we played last night in the live stream. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be using all 8 methods during the course of one game. I'm going to be studying the game both visually and via the stats and make a calculated decision at which one of the methods is most suited to my needs at the time. And in this game, there are 2 that I cannot use straight off the bat. Firstly, since I believe we should be winning this game and we are at home, I've decided to go with a positive mentality. It's highly unlikely that I'm going to go attacking very early in a game. This is not the greatest team ever, and I'm going to take every game slowly and make sure that we are in control of the game before I decide to do anything. And then secondly, we can't move the lines up because our lines are about as high as they will go at this point in time. So there are 2 options that I can't use in this game. Little bit of background on the game. We are playing against a team we should be beating. We are playing against a team much lower in the league. We are at home, and I feel that we should be getting a result out of this. I also need to get a good result because I need to maintain my position at the top of the table. A draw will do it, but I would like to have the win against a team who are beneath us in the league. And so because of their attributes, I've decided to start positively. I've decided to press them, to counter-press, which I don't normally do because we are not the best counter-pressing team. But it's something I decided early on I'd have a look at. And if they could pass the ball around our press, then we would come off the counter-press quite quickly. But at least we would try it from the beginning. I wanted to play the game in their half, be aggressive, and get in their face. They do, however, have one really good player, a right winger, and he is in the form of his life at the moment. This is compounded by the fact that my left wing-back, Teko, is deputising. He's just an 18-year-old kid who's never played at this level before, and he's in the team because my main 2 wing-backs are both injured at this time. So I am probably going to be quite vulnerable down my left-hand side, I'm thinking. And so I ask the team, rather than put pressure on the young kid, I asked the team to tight mark this right winger, a mistake that I made and something that I had to rectify quite quickly. And so now let's get into the game itself. And so as the game began, I was extremely concerned that they were going to target us down what they would perceive as a very weak left-hand side. Their best player was also playing on that side. And as it turned out, looking at the game very early on, that's exactly what they were doing. They were trying to get the ball out to the right, where they could get the ball to this player, of the opposition player, who was in extremely good form. And so I had a decision to make here about whether or not we could contain this boy, and if just by tight marking him, that was going to be enough. They win the ball again, and immediately they switch the ball to my left-hand side. It finds the winger. At this point, I've decided the counter press is counterproductive. They're just passing it around us. And suddenly the winger is off on his travels. He uses his pace, gets a cross in, and suddenly we are a goal behind. And that was not the start that I was hoping for. Suddenly now I've got to come from behind in this game, and this is not ideal. And now at this point I've got a decision to make, and I do ask the young wing back to tight mark the winger. I have to take a risk that he's going to be able to keep him quiet, and I just think if he's sitting on him, it might discourage them from passing the ball out to him. And I decide also to focus our play down the right-hand side, just to try and keep it away from that side of the pitch. We are in trouble down there, and the game does go on, and we do contain him, and we do start to work our way into the game. And I decide to ask my wing back not to close down, because this boy on the wing has so much pace. I didn't want him trying to close him down. We start to create chances. We hit the crossbar. We fire it over the bar. And suddenly it's I'm starting to think we have 3 shots, none on target. It's one of those days, and I'm going to have to find a way to solve this problem. And now we are getting chances. We're creating chances, but nothing yet seemingly looking like we could score a goal. And at this point, I'm shouting at players. I decide that phase 1 has to come into operation, and so I decide my Segunda Volante should go onto an attack role. Let's get an extra body in the penalty area, see if we can create some mayhem, see if we can create a chance that way, and see if something happens. But at the moment, as we move towards 20 minutes, we're making chances, we're controlling possession, but we simply cannot get that equalizing goal. We have most of the ball, but they are dangerous on the break, and because we've moved a player into a more attacking space, I have to keep an eye on the space where we would be extremely vulnerable in terms of leaving our left wing back isolated. We're still getting shots in, but they're going wide. We have corners and more corners, and we cannot get this ball on target. Maxi Alves looks like he's snapping at his shot, so I decide to tell him to shoot less often, just to stop him taking these snapshots from distance. And at the moment, I just have to wait and see now. I don't want to do anything else at this point in time. We have made ourselves more vulnerable. We forced them to go out on the left, and they are creating chances down the left now. But at least we have seemingly got their winger under control. I ask my other wing back to close down less, just because they are now focusing their attacks down the left-hand side. And suddenly, Kamalo, out of nowhere, out of nothing, bags a goal, and it becomes 1-1. And that came out of nothing. And would I give myself any credit for that? No. I think that's just that player is such a good player, Kamalo, that he just pulled something out of the bag just all by himself. So I'm not taking any credit for that. And as the game moves on towards 30 minutes, we've still not getting shots on target. Although we've scored, the ratio of shots to shots on target is still pretty poor. We're also giving the ball away now. The momentum of the game is starting to shift. It's becoming a much more even game. And we have to try and do something. And again, we burst into the box, but we cannot provide that final product. The young wing back is doing his very best to try and keep this boy occupied, but I can see 7 shots and only 2 on target at this point, and it's simply not good enough. My goalkeeper makes a good save. We're in danger of being in trouble in this game and in danger of losing this game. They've hit the post, and becoming more positive and pushing a player forward, we are leaving ourselves vulnerable. We still create chances, but we still can't get that goal that we need. And again, we have corner after corner, and we're still not able to convert our chances. And so I'm starting to think there is more that I need to do. It wasn't just a case of push the extra body up the pitch. There's much more that I need to do. And again, as we approach half-time, we are still making chances, albeit set pieces. Khumalo has a shot again from a set piece. We can't get them on target. We cannot put that final finishing touch. Another one goes straight to the goalkeeper. At this point, I notice that Maxi Alves is not very happy. He's not happy with the amount of pressing that he's being asked to do. And at half-time, I've got a couple of jobs to do. I decide that the first job I have to do is to sort Maxi Alves out. If he's not happy about pressing, and I've asked him to close down more, I'll take that away from him, make him a little bit happier. And then I will ask my young defender, I'll have a quiet word in his ear, and I'll tell him, keep going. You know you've got the ability. He's on a 6.4. I don't want to be rough with him, and he's very important to me, so I try to just pick him up a little bit. He's slightly happier. And so we start the second half optimistic that we will find a way to break this team down. We are controlling the game. It looks at this point like everything is going to plan. And suddenly, though, the match momentum swings and they start really attacking us down that left-hand side. And at some point, I'm going to have to make a decision. And at this point, I make a very strange decision, which confused my audience. I went more defensive. I went from positive to balanced. And remembering that I also need to actually, when I go up, I need to add a player to attack. I now need to take a player down to support. So I've actually conceded ground. Now, there is a reason for this, because I want to remain defensively solid. I have a responsibility to my defense as well. And so it's important I remain defensively solid. But also the other reason is, and I've tried this before, is when you go more defensive, the opposition are drawn out. Rather than dropping the lines, go defensively minded, they'll be drawn out, and bang, the space opened up behind them and we took the lead. And simply by going a little bit more defensive and by going down a notch in terms of our mentality, we were able to draw them towards us. That actually then opened up a huge amount of space. Maxi Alves, who is much happier now, he's got his shooting boots back on and he's put that one away quite nicely. And so we are 2-1 up now, and I'm going to stay balanced now, stay more defensive. They have to come out at us now. They are pushing players forward. I can see their line is much higher up the pitch than it was previously, and now there is room in behind us. And there's another chance as Khumalo gets in behind them, but he still can't get his shot on target. He's got one goal, and he's about to get another one. And look at that lovely ball into space behind them, and Khumalo gets his second goal. And simply by reducing our mentality, we've drawn them onto us and created space behind them. Now, normally, to create the space behind the team, what you would do is drop your lines. I didn't want to do that. My defense were, at this point in the game, very comfortable where they were. And so I wanted to keep the lines exactly where they were. The other way to draw them out, of course, is to drop your mentality. And that forces them to come to you and to attack you, leaving spaces behind them. And we weren't finished. We kept counter-attacking now, using the space that had opened up behind them. Even Teko, the young wing-back, starting to have a lovely game. He's much more involved. He's enjoying himself. And suddenly we are beating them quite easily. Another chance opens up. A turn by Alves finds Khumalo, hat-trick boy, and Alves has got himself a goal and an assist. It is really about thinking the game through and not only do you draw the opposition out towards you by dropping your lines, but you can do it by reducing the mentality. And if your defense is comfortable and you don't want to change where they are defending in terms of their defensive line, then the easiest way to do it is to drop the mentality. And that's something that I haven't seen many people using. At this point now, I'm just closing out the game, waiting for the final whistle. We have done a really good job, and just by reducing the mentality, we've turned a 1-1 into a 4-1 victory. We closed the game out quite comfortably. We're passing it around. I'm feeling really happy. Another good job has been done. Game over. And so there you have it. 7 ways that you can use to turn the game to your advantage and get those buffoons up top scoring goals where before they couldn't hit a barn door. Plus one that I use quite often now. And I found that by reducing the mentality, you can force the opposition to bring the ball towards you, thus creating space behind them. And that is exactly what I had in mind today. It also provided my defence with extra protection, and we ran out 4-1 winners in the end. So that's it for this video. It's been a bit longer than I anticipated, but I hope that you found it useful. If you are brand new to the channel and you like FM content, then why not hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be updated when we upload future videos. And don't forget to give us a like if you've made it this far, because it's likes and comments that help the YouTube algorithm to push the video out to people who've not yet had a chance to see our videos. And all that remains to be said now is stay safe, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.